everyone. Hello, and welcome to another and new episode of Unrealistic Expectations. So, I know you guys are familiar with my other podcasts where you would just hear my voice but never see the person behind the voice. Well, it's me. So from now on, all episodes will be visual and audio. So you'll be able to find them on YouTube if you're not a big podcast person, and if you are, you'll still be able to find them in the links provided on my Instagram, which is epic_reality_twist with 2 T's. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about grief and loss and all the different sides of it. The sides of substance suppression, sides of people dealing with people with empathy and people lacking empathy, dealing with different forms of loss, because loss and grief doesn't necessarily have to be the death of somebody. It could sometimes be a job or maybe a falling out with a friend that you had. And also we're going to cover how it affects you emotionally and mentally and how that can affect your behaviors as well. So today it'll be just me. I don't have a co-host today, well, a special guest today, but I do have my producer Reese, who's going to answer for the male perspective, because women and men, we handle our emotions differently, and it's a different outcome. And and with this podcast, I want to be able to cover all spectrums, like of both sides. So introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Reese. Yeah, I'll be producing. I'll be here along for the ride. So yeah, hey, check me out.
He will be a familiar voice you hear on the podcast from now on. So let's start. So recently, I lost somebody that was close to me. They were like a brother to me. They were really cool. And so I'm dealing with that. I lost 2 people, actually. One person I grew up with and one person I recently met 4 years ago. But it's a lot. It's hard. And, some people always, not even some people, a lot of people always would ask me, like, you never seem like you're going through things. You never seem like you're upset. And it's because of how I handle my grief and my emotions, and when I'm stressed out, I kind of go in a shutdown mode, and I feel like a lot of people normally do. Like when you're going through the loss of something, you kind of shut down emotionally and mentally, and your body in a sense goes into autopilot. Like, I'm not sure if it's the same for men. Is it?
I think a lot of men have different coping methods of it, and then we ignore a lot of things. So I do think, you go through the motions, but we probably, just blow it off like it's something else. So, yeah.
Yeah, like, see, I was raised around all boys. So I guess I kind of picked up some of those traits of kind of like, just like blocking everything out until like I have to confront it. But that's very, very bad, and it's not healthy because it has a major mental and emotional impact on you and just how you maneuver through life. Like, the loss of anybody is devastating, and loss doesn't necessarily, like I said, have to just be of a person. It could be loss of a friendship, loss of a job or a opportunity you had, and having that opportunity like slip through your fingers. It could be like super devastating for somebody, and that can play a major emotional and mental role in your everyday life. It can shift things drastically. Like, somebody I'm really close to is dealing with a loss as well, the same loss that I'm dealing with, and they said it kind of just made them look at like life differently. If they ever have a falling out with somebody, they just want to always make sure to end it on a positive note with saying I love you, because you really don't know when your last day is going to be. You really don't know when it's over, like when that person is going to be gone, whether it's friend, family, coworker, freaking, I don't know, somebody, waitress at your favorite restaurant, whatever. Just like being sure to show them the appreciation when they're there, because I felt like a lot of people like they show up for you when you gone, but while you alive, they don't show up for you. And I feel like men and women both deal with like experiencing that. But it's like emotionally and mentally, it can kind of shatter you in a sense, especially if you never dealt with loss before or a traumatic loss. I dealt with death at a very young age, so I'm familiar with the feelings, the grieving, the sadness, the depression, the crying. I'm familiar with all of it. Some people, they never dealt with a dramatic loss before. So if they're in their 20s or teens and whatever age, and they never dealt with losing somebody close to them, no family members, no friends or nothing, and then it just happens and it's somebody super close, it can be life shattering. Like, it can send them in a spiral. And that kind of leads into what I also want to talk about, substance suppression. Like, when I'm dealing with stuff, I drink a lot. And no, it's not healthy, no, it's not good, but it's a coping mechanism for me. I drink a lot and I turn into a workaholic. Like, all I want to do is work or do things to keep my mind off of whatever it is that's bothering me emotionally and mentally. No, it's not good and it's not healthy, and you should deal with your emotions and actually talk about what's bothering you. Go through the emotions, feel it instead of suppressing it, because it can have a negative outcome in the long run, in the future, because you'll get into a toxic pattern of ignoring it. And then, like, next thing you know, you got all this baggage and all these problems and all these different things. And now you feeling all this different stuff. And you like, where the hell did all this come from? And it's like, you've been suppressing all these issues, all these emotions, all this pain. Eventually, it's going to come up in some form. It's going to show in some form. And Reese, I know you mentioned that guys, y'all kind of ignore it, like, or just like whatever it, but like eventually it'll show up. So like, how do you think it shows up in most, I guess, men life? Like, when women, y'all might just come in the house one day and catch us crying, like, and we're super emotional. Right. We're sitting there crying, watching some movie, and they're like, what the hell is wrong? And it's like, we're crying because we're sad, but there's so much baggage behind why we're crying. So right. That's why we're like that. Like, how does it show up women? How does it show in men?
I think it's common for most men to usually show up like with an anger, like misplaced anger. Mm-hmm. So like you said, like it might be something so small as the heat is hot, like right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, why is it so hot in here? And now you pouring in all this extra energy and emotion that's really festered and built up from something else that you're dealing with, and then at this moment it's like, yo, you shouldn't have the heat this hot, and he's yelling and screaming and all this, and you like, it can't be. There's no way that you're not just mad because the heat was on 69. Like, you mad because you dealing with loss and grieving. So yeah, sometimes I think that's definitely one thing that a lot of men like to do, like a lot of aggression and just misplaced anger.
Right. And like, people, like, I feel like another thing that can also like trigger people to like, ignore their emotions or suppress them or just kind of pretend nothing's going on is like the people that you have around you. Not saying your friends or family don't care about you, because of course they do, but sometimes they don't show any empathy to what you're feeling. Sympathy to what you're feeling. Like, they're like, it's gonna be okay, you'll get over it, you'll be fine, keep going, pray about it. Like, just kind of basically telling you words to say, I care, but get over it. At least how I look at it. And that don't always help. Sometimes it backfires, because it makes you look at them like, I'm coming to you, and this issue might not be big to you, but it's devastating to me. So I want you to be there to console me or support me, or just be a listening ear. You don't even gotta say anything. Just be a listening ear. But some people don't know how to show like compassion nowadays. So it's like, it's another reason why we might suppress what we're going through, because we don't got that listening ear. We don't got that shoulder to cry on. So we got to stay tough. You got to keep going. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep going, moving forward. You can't stop to process what you're actually feeling. And I feel like a lot of men deal with that because men are supposed to be the providers and the ones to go out into the world, and they gotta face the brunt of everybody in the world. So they always have to be like hard and keep it together, as a and everybody I'm sure have niece, nephew, cousins, brothers, whatever. You always hear them be told, like, tell the younger men, like, little boys don't cry and stuff like that. It's like, did they ever get a chance to actually even process it? Do they even know what emotions are? Like, do they ever get a chance to actually really dig into their emotions and process them? Like, as women, we cry, we're emotional, we go through what we go through, and of course we even hear stuff too. We hear you're too sensitive, you're too emotional, you cry too much, things like that. It's like the world kind of shapes you to kind of be an autopilot a lot of times, but that's not good. Like, you don't process what you're actually going through, and like I said, it can have a lot of long-term damage because of that. Like we said, with men, it'll have a lot of misplaced rage, a lot of just aggression or anger from out of nowhere. Don't know where it's coming from. And it could be because you lost your best friend when you were 16 and you never dealt with it. So now you're just angry at the world. Like, or for women, we could be just crying every single day. Don't know why. And it's probably because we might be going through, I don't know, the loss of somebody that made us feel important or special, and we don't know how to process it because now that person is gone, so now it's affecting our self-esteem and all these other things. Like, it's a lot with it, and I feel like it's not talked about enough, or it's not addressed enough. Like, especially in the urban community, I want men and women to be more compassionate to each other, and like really like be like, it's alright to cry, whether you're male or female. Like, if you feel like you gotta break down. If you feel like you gotta have a moment where you kind of just stay in the house and just mourn that loss, whatever the loss is, you should do that. Like, don't allow anybody else to project how they handle things onto you. If you know you want to cry and you feel like crying, don't let your best friend tell you, oh, suck it up, you're going to get through it. No, if you want to cry it out. You got to feel that. You got to go through that, because if you don't go through those emotions, they are going to still be there, and they're still going to have the same feeling that they had when you first was going through it. Eventually, you got to face that monster, whether you want to or not. And it's crazy because, like I said, with me, when I go through stuff, I become a workaholic and I drink a lot. I still deal with a lot of feelings from when was younger, and I'm still dealing with them as an adult today. It's just now it's enhanced with like misplaced rage or a shorter temper, or I have anxiety now because of different things I've experienced. It's like I'm still dealing with those same monsters or them same emotions I was dealing with when they first came. I'm just now they're bigger and I'm older. Nothing has really changed. So I got another question. Do you feel like in the urban community, like, there's a lot of like lack of expressing emotions, or actually actually dealing with the emotions that you face, like as a child, adult, whatever, but in the urban community mainly?
Yeah, I feel like that's a major stigma in the urban community. I feel like you said, like a lot of us at a young age never really, not only did we didn't see, people process those type of emotions, but we weren't allowed to process them either, and that stemmed from like generational curses, or just generational themes where it was passed on. Like, you wasn't able to really deal with like grievance, or just losing someone that was close to you or whatever. Like, you weren't able because everyone was always saying, you get back, like, you tough, you got to get through it, it happens, you know what I mean, and not letting you really sit through that. One thing I learned as I got older is everyone has their own grieving process, and though me and you could witness the same accident. We could have the same, the same friend could, we could lose tragically, and me and you would process it totally different ways. Whereas one of us, I might be able to move on and go to work or whatever, or you might be able to, continue about your day. You cried it out and you got over it, but I might be the one that's like, damn, like I'm still fucked up over, months later, because again, like everyone has their own grieving process. Mm-hmm. And I think but I do think now we're just noticing those things, like we're aware of it, that now it's a problem. Like, yeah, you should probably get help for it. But yeah, I do think that's a major stigma within our community, like just not being able to process those emotions.
Definitely, I definitely agree. Like, I remember I was talking to one of my friends. I told one of my friends, I was like, I love this generation. What are they, Gen Zs or something like that? Like, I love how aware of everything that's going on they are, because when we was growing up, it's like, it was kind of like you don't know nothing. You ain't know nothing about mental health. There was no such thing as therapy. There was no such thing as, listen, you had the core emotions: happy, sad, and angry. That was it. It was no such thing as anxiety or I feel nervous. None of that existed. And if it was like, oh, you're just being emotional, you'll be all right. Like, it was ignored. It's like, this generation now is really like, no, mental health is real. Trauma is real. Like, abuse is real. Like, they are on top of everything, and they refuse to let, like you said, generational misguidance or anything like that, like, silence them or steer them away. Like, they're really like, no, these things are real, and whether you're going to help me or not, I'm going to get help. I'm going to conquer this. I'm going to overcome this. And I feel like a lot of adults nowadays are like, well, at least people in their 20s and 30s that are around my age, we're now trying to correct generational curses and traumas, and we're trying to relearn things we were taught, because we were taught a lot of unhealthy ways, and now we're trying to relearn basically everything, how to handle emotions, how to handle your mental state, how to handle your health. We're trying to relearn everything, and it makes it so difficult. It makes it so hard. Like, especially when you're dealing with the loss, it makes it even harder, because you kind of want to go into a bubble in a sense, kind of like you want the world to stop because of what you're feeling, but the world don't stop. The sun's still gonna come up, the sun's still gonna go down, the time's still gonna keep going, and you have to go with the times. Like, just because you're dealing with a loss, you can't say, I can't go to work. You still got to go to work. The water company don't care that you lost somebody close to you. The electric company don't care. They still gonna tell you need to pay us. Your job still gonna say you need to come in. Your children still might have to get to school. Nothing stops just because you're experiencing something emotionally, and it might be traumatic or a loss or whatever. And I feel like that's why we're so comfortable with just kind of ignoring it or using substance to suppress it. But even with that can become an evil monster as well, because substance abuse is a real thing, and it's major. Even people who might think, oh, I don't have a problem, I'm fine, I'm not an addict, I don't abuse this substance. I drink a lot. I consider myself an alcoholic. Do I have the typical or stereotypical alcoholic tendencies? No, I don't. But I would still consider myself an alcoholic, because I drink majority every day, and it's definitely more than 5 times a day. That's an alcoholic, regardless how you want to say it, whether I'm being irrational or I'm out here being belligerent or whatever. Even if I'm fully functional, it's still an alcoholic. And it's the same thing for people who smoke weed. They say, oh, I'm not an addict, you can't get addicted to weed. If you smoke all the time, every day, multiple times a day, you're addicted to weed. You're an addict, whether you want to say it or not. No, it don't mean you're acting like you on out here selling TVs and all that. No, you're not doing all that, but it's still handles their addiction differently. You can even be, it don't even have to be a substance. It could simply be, all right, you going through something, so you like to gamble, so you're going to go gamble. That's an addiction too. Because you doing something, you're doing, an addiction is basically you're doing this to suppress whatever you're feeling or going through. And it's gotten to the point where you have to do it every day, all the time. And you end up struggling with control of it. Like, it has control over you. It's no longer helping you, and now it's hindering you. And I feel like when a lot of people go through grief or loss or trauma, like, that's where a lot of substance suppression and comes from. Like, it starts there. You hurting, so it starts there. Like, come on now. I ain't never been to one funeral where everybody ain't drinking and they ain't drunk as hell. I had never been to one funeral where everybody's not drinking. Like, not one ever. Or even when you lose somebody, like, your first thing you go to is like, I need a drink, I need to smoke, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like, you need that substance or whatever that action is to help you come down enough just to cope with what you're feeling. And it might not make sense to people who don't drink or smoke or anything like that. And kudos to y'all, because y'all just out here living a sober life, happy as hell, dealing with all these problems. I'm trying to figure that out. But kudos to y'all. But the people who do struggle with, like, different things in life are like, you go get a drink when you're stressed out. You smoke some weed when you're stressed out. You decide to have some fun with different things when you're stressed out. Like, you got to be careful with it, because it can become a demon that's really, really hard to get control of. Like, super, super hard to get control of. That's why I feel like it's so important when you're going through something to really sit and process those emotions, because a lot of times, like, if you don't, it's going to be so much bigger than it was before. So much bigger. Like, I'll tell you all a story. I lost my grandfather at a really young age. I was in elementary school when I lost my grandfather. To this day, I still cannot handle the fact that he's gone. I am literally about to be 29. I'm about to turn 29 this month. To this day, I am still struggling with the loss of him. I'm still struggling with the fact that this was somebody so dear to me that I can't talk to, I can't hug, I can't run to. I'm still struggling with that. I lost my grandfather when I was in elementary school, single digits, like 6 years old. I was a baby, and I'm grown. I'm still struggling with it, like, still to this day, because back then I didn't process it. I didn't know really what death was. I didn't process the emotions I was feeling. I didn't talk about the emotions I was feeling because I felt like I had nobody I could talk to. So, like, it was like, okay, well, these are just things you ignore. So I learned to ignore them. But now I'm older and I'm still dealing with stuff like this. I'm still struggling with stuff like this. And it's not the typical, oh, I miss them, I wish I could talk to them. It's like, it still feels like it's the same exact day. That's how major it was for me. But at the time, I didn't know, and I didn't really have, I guess, the support, or maybe like was told the right things to actually like help me process what was happening and what I was feeling. It was more kind of just, oh, she's a child, she'll be okay. Like, and that was it. So that's how I looked at it. I'm a child, I'll be all right. So I just ignored it. But it's like, now it's a bigger monster. I'm still battling with it. Like, it's difficult. Like, when you lose people you care about and trying to cope with it and like really, really like getting through it. But if anything, there's a lot of different methods to deal with the loss. You can, if you feel like you gotta cry. If you feel like you want to write about it, you can write about it. You could write a letter to the person if it's a person. Even if it's not a person, you could write a letter to that career, that job you might have lost, or a car, whatever you're grieving or loss is, you could still write a letter about it or to them, and say everything you wish you could have said. Write them about your day if you want to. Like, you could even like speak it out loud as if they're there, as if they can hear you. And no, you're not going to get the response that you want. You're not going to get a response, but it's just a healthy coping mechanism instead of resorting to the unhealthy ones of substance suppression or misplaced rage and things like that. Like, there's a lot of ways to get through grief. They even have grief hotlines, just like they have the suicide hotline and addiction hotline. They got a grief hotline, so you can call and talk to somebody about it, and they are literally paid to sit there and listen to you cry, talk, vent, whatever you want to say. They're paid to sit there and listen to you about it. It's so many different ways to really process it in a healthy way. Even like going back and going over memories you had with the person, or being like, okay, I might have lost this job opportunity and it hurts me a lot, but okay, well, maybe I can do this and still kind of be in that area or field, but not that exact job title. You know, like, it's a lot of different coping mechanisms. And if you are battling or dealing with grief or loss, try to find the positive and healthy coping mechanisms before the negative ones. And it's going to be okay. Remember that regardless of anything, it is going to be okay. As much as we might hate that cliche line, it really will be okay. Any closing messages, Reese?
Yeah, just take care of your mental health. Take it serious. And yeah, just like I said, seek out the necessary help, therapy, or whatever you feel like you need. Definitely take advantage of those things. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, it was a pleasure talking with you guys, and I'll see you again. Bye.